everybody, Jacqueline here. So a few years ago when I started getting back into painting, I struggled motivating myself and even just setting aside time from my busy life to sit down and paint. So back then I decided to do a 30-day painting challenge, and that challenge is honestly the reason why I still paint today and even why I have this YouTube channel. So an art challenge for me is setting a reasonable artistic goal to consistently paint in a way that helps you improve in areas where you'd like to be better. Art challenges are great for those who want to build a consistent art practice, want to improve their technique or work in a new medium, want to feel more confident in their art, and want to build a new habit because painting and creating is something that makes you feel so good. So what are some different types of art challenges that you can do? There are lots of different ways that you can structure an art challenge depending on your goal. So one option is the mini art challenge. I know a lot of people have busy schedules, but don't let that discourage you from doing an art challenge. You can set it to be 15 minutes every day after your kids leave for school. It can be your train ride into work where you just have a little notebook and you can just sketch every single day, or any other mini art challenge that you can fit already into your day. Another type of art challenge is the duration art challenge. You can set a 7-day, a 14-day, a 30-day, like a full month, and the goal of that is to just set aside time to paint every day. It can be little bits, it can be 30 minutes, it can be a whole hour every day, but like setting a duration and showing up to create something every single day. Another take on the duration art challenge is, I like to call it a duration in the studio. So perhaps you can't set aside multiple days, but if you need to get started and you just need to start in your studio, which my studio is just the corner of my bedroom, so you don't have to have a fancy studio or anything, but try to set aside an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. The goal of this is to sit down and get lost in your painting, your drawing, whatever you're creating, and just finish a piece. Like sitting down one day to just finish whatever the goal or the painting or the thing that you want to do is done. So the next type of art challenge is the project-oriented challenge. This is where you're aiming to create art for a specific deadline or perhaps an art show. Like for instance, I am doing my own separate art challenge of creating pieces for an art show that I'm going to be doing in a local coffee shop for the month of October. So I'm setting aside time so that I can create art for that, which you'll see more of in the future. And these next two art challenges are where you're going to be working with someone else. The first one being the Art Pals challenge. So this is the art challenge you can do with a friend. Perhaps you can each set aside time to meet up at a coffee shop or at each other's homes every Saturday during the summertime to sit down for an hour and just create with like your watercolors or like certain art mediums that you want to do that you both like doing. You could also do one where you each are creating art every month or something and you can mail it to each other. So it's kind of like a pen pal back and forth, but you're sending art to one another. You could even slip in a little note if you want to. This is just some form of consistent practice that you get to do with your friend, and you can get really unique with this. I just gave you a couple ideas, but feel free to do whatever you want. You can brainstorm with your friend and figure out something to where you each can do it. So with that, another idea is the Art Pals project, like collaboration. So if you feel like you struggle with doing an art project by yourself, or even just meeting up with a friend to paint each week, each month, like whatever, you could also ask a friend to do the project with you, whether that's a small mural in your town or doing an art show together, because maybe you can't fill the space with just your art, so you can collab with another art friend or friends. You could even make a zine together and just get real creative with one another and then work on it actually together, so it's more of a collaboration. And I find it best to find that art friend who's open to doing like a project challenge collaboration with you, and then you can get together and brainstorm all the ideas, and it's just a really fun thing to do with friends. So today's challenge for me is I'm going to be doing the duration in the studio challenge. I do a lot of little mini paintings, so that is what I want to do here with you today. A couple of weeks ago, my husband and I went to Crested Butte here in Colorado for the Wildflower Festival, and there were so many wildflowers. It was insane. I've never seen so many wildflowers all around, and we were only there for like 5 or 6 hours, but I took a ton of photos. I have my reference photos that I'm going to be using to paint here today, and we're going to see how many I get through. So I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of little mini paintings. I prepped this board and taped up 9. That's what I was able to fit on here. So we're going to see if I can get through all 9 today. But I have reference photos on my computer of the wildflowers, close-ups, some more landscape. So a couple years ago when I did that 30-day painting challenge, I did it on these little mini papers here, these little just little mini paintings. I love painting itty bitty and tiny. I think it's so fun. So we're going to see how many we get through today. Just in one sitting, we're going to see how long I can focus and just improve my painting techniques. I haven't painted itty bitty tiny in a little bit, so I'm pretty excited to dive into that. And we're going to move over here. I'm going to do the overhead shot so that you can see me painting it. And while I'm painting it, I am going to give you some tips on doing an art challenge that I think are going to be really helpful. So continue watching. I'm going to set everything up and let's get into painting. Perfect. So now we are here on my desk where I have already set up on this board all 9 of my little itty bitty painting papers ready. I have all my acrylic gouaches that I'm using. I'm using Holbein acrylic gouache. This is my favorite type of paint to paint with. I have a nice ceramic palette for me to mix all my paints. I have my brushes over here, and of course some water. And I have my pencil here to do some light sketching, just so I can get kind of the proportions and the composition correct. And then I also have my iPad here with all of my reference photos that I took while in Crested Butte. So I think to begin, I'm just going to sketch it out just lightly. If you've been around on my channel, you know that my sketches are just a few lines. I don't get too detailed, especially with such an itty bitty painting. There's not really much room for me to add that much detail with my pencil, but I can do that with my paints. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one of these landscapes and start sketching just the rough parts. So that's about as detailed as I get, if you can see that, just to get where like the horizon line is going to be. So here are 5 tips for art challenges. Number 1, stay positive and give yourself room to grow. When I did my first art challenge for 30 days, there were definitely a few days that I was too busy. It's easy to feel discouraged and feel like you didn't accomplish your goal. So give yourself space to grow and just enjoy that you're making art more consistently than you were before. Tip number 2, reflect on your progress. It's so cool to see how much we can grow as artists, even in just a few days. Seeing your progress will help you stay motivated. Number 3, keep your art supplies visible. It's a good visual reminder that you're working on a new goal, especially when you're getting started. So set up the night before, have it all set up on your desk or your table, but just have your art supplies visible and ready and easy to jump into your art challenge. Number 4, set a reminder. If you have a really busy life, it might be easiest to set a calendar reminder. And then as you keep going with each day, you'll just get really excited to wake up, and maybe that's when you're doing it in the morning, and you can just start doing it, and soon you may not need that reminder, but set a reminder if that's something you need to get started. Number 5, if sharing on social media, give yourself a few days buffer before you share quote unquote day 1. That way, if life gets busy, you don't feel so much pressure if you miss a day here or there. So try not to create day one and then share it on day one. Like when I did my paint challenges, I would share it on social media like 2 days later. So by the time I was sharing day one, I was actually currently painting like day three. So it's just really good to give yourself just a few days of buffering if you decide to share on social media.